You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold, episode 26. Today, we're very excited because we have a special guest all the way from London, and here I am in central Massachusetts. Fernando Del Canto, how are you, sir?
Very good and very happy to be here, Ben. It's a pleasure to share these minutes with you.
Well, thank you so much. It's fantastic to see you. Did you bring your wig today? I know the barristers in England wear the wigs. Do you have? I mean, I think it's terrific. We're going to get into my wig.
I have my wig in the other room, and it's very useful, especially when the winter is coming for someone with so much hair.
Oh, right. There you go. So. Okay, there you go. But so we just featured you actually a few days ago. Like you went up. And great story, and I'm really happy to have you on the Lawyer Stories podcast. So like I want to jump right into your story because the first thing really like stuck out to me. So you said in your story at 15, you were typing your dad's legal claims. And so I'm really and this was in Spain. So I'm really curious, like were you able to understand that stuff at 15? And like, really, what did you gain from that?
So basically, I mean, my dad was a lawyer, a very traditional lawyer in a small town. And at that time, he made a lot of emphasis for me and my brother and my sister to do typing, proper typing. So he said, this is the future. You need to learn this, and English. Those were the two things he insisted. So basically, I mean, when he needed to type something, he will be standing behind me. And I will be typing the claims and the contracts.
So would he be standing behind you, like saying, "Okay, Fernando, write this,
yes.
write that, write this"?
Yes.
So he would dictate to you what to write.
Definitely. Okay. And then at that time, we didn't have computers. So basically, It was one sheet after another. This is wrong. Put it again. So it was a lot of repetition for me to get familiar with those terms, all the formulas. Because in Spanish law, everything is very traditional and very, very ritual.
Right.
So, it was very, to be honest, boring at some point, boring. At the beginning.
But did you know what you were like typing, or was it just sort of like, okay, I'm just typing the words without really understanding what's going in there?
To be honest, my dad used to give me a good introduction to the case. Cases were interesting, so I was interested in the case. But when we were coming to write the claim itself, it wasn't so interesting, it was full of articles and case law. So I was losing attention, at that point. With contracts was different. Contracts were a little bit more interesting because I could see, the money, the terms.
Right. No, that's really interesting. So you have, I know this is sort of like, I'm going from like one extreme to the next, but so like fast forward and you have, and we're going to talk about everything in between, but I just want to make sure I say this. You have 5 offices. Right? Like you have an office in London, Madrid, Doha. You have a new one in Ireland, and this place called Ibiza, which I hear is like amazing. We were just talking about before the show. So that's great. So congratulations. Like that's really cool. So, and you're a barrister, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you tell us, like, before we get into more specific things, like what is the difference between really a solicitor and a barrister? My understanding here in the U.S. is one does more writing, one does more arguing.
So the traditional difference is today a little bit less relevant because, typically solicitors were more involved in the litigation itself, in the initial stages, relationship with client, drafting documents, preparing the claims, submitting that to court. And barristers were much more focused on advocacy and preparing counsel opinion, being more specialized, in particular topics. These days, solicitors can go to the high court. I mean, they
Oh,
can
really?
get rights of audience. I mean, they can become solicitors advocates. So basically they do it. They are very specialized. I mean, many of the solicitors are very, very specialized on different topics. And barristers now can get direct client access, which is something that wasn't allowed before. I mean, barristers were not able to get instructions from clients directly. They get it typically from solicitors or other qualified professionals. But these days, both professions are becoming more similar in many aspects.
So who would work for who? Like, would you hire solicitors at your offices?
Typically, the solicitor will be instructing us on particular matters where the point of law or the technical aspects of the case require a specialized opinion. So we will get instructions from the solicitor. So then we will draft an opinion, or we will be taking the case on their behalf. On
So
behalf
they
of the
would do
client,
all the
obviously.
legwork, and then you would do the arguing, sort of thing.
Correct.
Do you think people with
Advocacy.
do you think people with the correct skills end up as a solicitor and a barrister, or have you ever met barristers that you're like, well, this person should be a solicitor and the solicitor should be a barrister, sort of thing?
I mean, technically there are. I mean, the two professions represent different skills, and a barrister is perhaps a little bit more focused on the points of law, the legal matters. I mean, the legal research. I mean, it's a little bit more type of scholarly type of work on one side, and also the advocacy. The oral advocacy is very important in the barrister profession. Solicitors are much more, how you say, skillful in getting the facts from the client and the relationship with the client, preparing the claim, how you say, focusing the case initially, in the right procedure.
It's like a paralegal sort. I mean, but now they can go to court, so it's not quite a paralegal role.
No, I mean, to be very honest, I mean, like obviously the difference exists in England and is very clear, for especially for English professionals, but solicitors can be very, very highly skilled on particular matters, And
so who goes to school longer? Who has to go to school longer?
Technically, the school bit is similar for both, because I mean, there is like an academic stage that we both share. So basically you need to complete an LLB before entering into the profession, and then you do a course, like 1 year course, to qualify as a solicitor or as barrister. And then it comes the training stage, as a solicitor or pupillage for a barrister, which you do in practice. So technically, I mean, it's same type of time frame, but the intensity and the study on different matters change, between the legal course for the solicitors and the bar course for the barristers.
Oh, very good. Okay, so now personally, so you are from Spain, correct?
I am.
And then, so like, tell me about, and now you're in London, and you were like the first Spanish attorney, like, who got called to the bar to go to the bar in England. So like, tell me like the whole story. Like, how did that, how did you say, all right, I'm going to Spain. Like, I'm going to just like, I mean, was it Ibiza? Like, I don't know, like Ibiza sounds so cool. I mean, I'm thinking like you wanted to go to Ibiza and see like, Hello Controlled or something. I don't know. Like,
yeah, I mean, like
techno parties and raves.
To be honest, I mean, in the 90s, I mean, when I completed my law degree, and I was facing, the possibility of staying in my daddy's place, in Jerez, a small town with family criminal law, and going to another country, to really develop what I really wanted to do, which at that time was intellectual property. I mean, my passion was intellectual property. So I got a place, an offer in England to do a master's degree in intellectual property back in 98, yes, in Southampton Institute at that time. And this is how I came to England. So then I changed from intellectual property to tax. I got a very good offer to work for KPMG.
So you got so you left because you got the offer, or you wanted to just leave and not be
no.
at that place?
I wanted to do the intellectual property basically course. I got the offer, I went to England. And then while I was studying, I got an offer from KPMG to work in tax. So I started to look for a job, because I mean, I really needed to to work at that time. I mean, I have a 2-year-old daughter, so studying full time wasn't an option, really. I mean, financial pressure, basically.
Right.
So basically, I moved into tax from intellectual property to tax, to something
Yeah.
totally different. And in tax, I started with KPMG. Then I went to Deloitte,
Yeah.
private clients.
Deloitte,
While
so
I
you're
was
talking
in
about
the
like Deloitte, like aren't they like accountants? Like were you in like an attorney
yeah,
for them or
I mean,
something?
they do. I was working for the tax department, a particular unit called private clients, and we deal a lot with, inheritance matters, wills, trust, these type of things. And as a lawyer, I was basically drawn to that, strongly. So at some point, I was in Deloitte working with lawyers all the time, with barristers, getting counsel opinion here and there, and I basically started to develop a relationship with the legal profession in London with
Right.
several tax barristers. And they were the ones encouraging me to go to the bar because they say, what are you doing? With accountants, move to the law, come back, we can have work for you. So basically I had the option to go either as a solicitor or barrister, and I took the barrister route, which I
This
knew
was
it was
after you went to law school, right? This was after you went to law school.
after
Wow.
I went to law school.
Okay.
I was working in Deloitte when I decided to do that. First, I did my tax qualifications in the UK, and then I started studying English law, just to get familiar with the English legal system, trust and equities, torts, contract. So I spent some time working on that studying, and then I was called to the bar in 2006 specifically. At that point, I started my own practice as a barrister, and here I am. So I started with a small office.
So were you called to the bar ever in Spain?
Yes, I was in 1999 in Spain. So I was a qualified lawyer already.
Wow. Okay. So why did you end up picking like those areas of law? Like you had like IP and tax. Like I know tax you switched over to, but you started in IP. So like why did you start there? What was the interest?
IP for me was like a passion. I have been working with artists and creators and people who have that passion for content development. And the protection of IP from a legal point of view was a very interesting area for me, especially looking at copyright and this type of things, copyright and trademarks rather than patents and other matters. And then when I started doing tax, I realized the importance of tax on intellectual property planning. Developing strategies for royalty type of transactions internationally.
Wow.
And then I went to Harvard to a very, very small workshop, a 1-week workshop called Monetizing Intellectual Property. That was in 2007. It was the first course focusing on monetizing intellectual property. And from that, I have been developing more and more this connection between tax and intellectual property. So those two areas for me are now core in my practice,
Wow, that's amazing. So you have, I mentioned earlier in the show, you have offices. So you went from Spain and now you're in London, but you have offices in Madrid, Ibiza. I don't think they pronounce that Z. I think it's like a TH. Right?
Ibiza, we say Ibiza.
Ibiza. Yeah, I heard that on some like techno music I've heard sometimes. So, live from Ibiza, Paul Oakenfold. Okay, so Doha.
Lot of DJs, lot of artists in
Right.
Ibiza, let me tell you. Amazing people there. A lot of
Ireland.
intellectual property.
Tell me, like, how did you get all over the world, basically? Like, what did you do? So these are all your businesses? Like.
Yeah, let me explain to you. It's quite organic, the way we are organized is we call it chambers in England, basically it's not a partnership as such. So basically it's a group of professionals working together, in a place, in a chambers. Each one of them is independent. So we don't have like a partnership relationship like solicitors have. In fact, this is a requirement. As a barrister, we cannot work in partnership with other people. We do our work, and this is the work we do. So it's quite vertical from that point of view. So basically we get in chambers with other people, and I decided to create this brand, Del Canto Chambers, because we have a lot of business with Spain originally. A lot of Spanish people in England and English people going to Spain. Then I was seconded. I mean, I got an opportunity in Qatar with the Qatar government for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I ended living 5 years in Doha. I mean, between Doha and London, moving back and forward quite a lot. Then I opened an office there. I mean, a representative office. I was working as legal counsel and chief compliance officer for a government entity. Developed good relationships in the country. I love Qatar. I have many friends there. So basically, I got a very good lawyer there, Mariam, and she runs the office basically. In Spain, we have a group of people.
So you have an arrangement with these other attorneys, like in other.
But we work in exclusive basis, basically for the chambers. Okay. But each one of them bring their own work, and we provide, like the branding, the management, the coming together. When I mean PR. For instance, I mean, when we do articles in papers, things like that. So we facilitate the work of everyone, and then they pay to chambers. Basically, I mean, when we get them work, I mean, they pay to chambers, not to me. They pay to facilitate the admin and the clerking of the chambers. So basically, it's quite organic, and we work all together. So we how you say, invest quite a lot in personal branding for each one of them. Although we work under the same brand.
Right.
Not under. Yeah, sorry.
Is a chamber like a law office? Like, what's a chamber like? Is it?
Yeah, chambers is technically. I mean, it's coming. I mean, the word is coming. I mean, it refers to a room or a space, physical space where people meet to work. So this is the chambers, and technically, I mean, chambers are named after the address where they are located. So that will be 19 all square buildings or whatever. I mean, depending on where they are located. So it's not common to name a chambers after the name of one of the lawyers. I mean, I did it because I thought I like it, and I am coming from Spain, so I was a little bit alien in England, so I could afford to have some luxury, like naming chambers after my name, and I did, and it works well.
That's amazing. Yeah, you deserve it. So why don't you tell everybody tell us the name? Del Canto Chambers.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go. And tell us where it's located again.
Sorry?
Del Canto Chambers.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. That's terrific. So where's tell us all where Del Canto Chamber. They're located in the 5 different countries, right?
Yeah. Right now we are working on those countries. We have clients in the different countries. The last office coming to work with us is in Dublin. I mean, it's not in Dublin. It's in the Cork. Cork basically is outside Dublin, a very rural and very beautiful area. And we have a lawyer based there. She's originally from Colombia. She's an international lawyer expert in intellectual property. The intention is to promote more Dublin or Ireland as a place to do business in Europe, especially for American companies and Asian companies, Middle East companies. It's one of the, how you say, English language places to do businesses in Europe.
Wow, that's amazing. So tell me, like, you've lived and worked as like a lawyer in Spain, England, Qatar, USA. Like, you got to tell me about the USA, but like, so is there like a global thread between all attorneys and the practice of law, do you think?
I think there is, how you say, from a traditional point of view, in all these places, you will find that lawyers have a passion for how you say, advocating for other people's interests. And this is true in Middle East, Latin America, United States, UK, Europe, anywhere you go, you will find them that way. I mean, there's big differences in terms of how you qualify, how you are regulated, but the original passion for advocating, for protecting, for defending is there, Then the range of understandings in what the profession means in each place is quite different.
So what's your real passion? Like, what do you love to do, like, in the law? Like, what is it? Is it IT? Is it tax? Is it?
I mean, like, technically what I like to do, or what I want to do, and what I do and I love is intellectual property.
Okay.
However, in terms, I am now in my 53. Having passed half a century here, mostly in law, I am more interested in the philosophy and sociology. I am interested in seeing how the lawyer profession is impacting
Tell me more about
our society.
Tell me more about that. Are you studying it right now? Like, tell me.
Yeah, I did. I was planning to do a PhD in Leeds, and I had my thesis, proposal, everything ready to be done. And it was, the title is critical lawyering. Basically, is adding a critical legal studies perspective to the lawyer profession with a gender perspective. So basically, feminist studies and that stuff. I am very interested on exploring those inequalities in the practice of law. And I have an agenda, in terms of how you say, dismantling the big firms. I think big firms have been damaging a lot our profession. I'm sorry for everyone from a big firm listening to this, but I have argumented why.
Why? Tell me what. Tell us why.
Yes. So basically, the financial model and the partnership model of the big firms has taken us away from the real core for the profession. So when the timesheet comes into the equation, you forget what are you doing. You cannot get to the same level of study and research and intensity while you are pressurized for financial aspects of managing the firm, which I think is fair enough. The partners are very happy because they get all the money, from this.
Yeah.
But for the lawyers, it's not good. It's not good. It's creating a lot of psychological problems for the profession. Inequalities. I'm not talking just gender inequalities. Racial inequalities.
Let's talk about the gender inequality, because you have you've written about that. I've seen. Or
yes, I did.
Yeah. So we're getting down to some other stuff, but like what? Tell me about like you're an advocate for like gender equality. That's
I am
amazing. So tell me about that.
So basically, I got an interest in feminism like 6 years ago, because I realized, how these inequalities were affecting, our profession, our practice in a very clear way. So I felt responsible as a man, allowing this to happening and watching this, from our perspective, from our seat, without doing anything. So basically, I started studying, like gender studies, feminism, like taking an academic interest on this. And then I got involved with activism and looking at all the different aspects, of the how you say, feminist agenda. To put it that way, because it's clearly feminist agenda. And then coming to law, I connected with 2 scholars who are doing an amazing work on this in Europe. Basically, I got the statistics and all the data and all the research they have done in terms of salaries, the crystal ceiling, all the different issues, sexism in the profession. All these matters that are there, and we are a little bit late in the legal profession to speak about these things. In England, for instance, the Bar Council has published a study, like few weeks ago, in which they were basically concluding that the salary difference between males and females lawyers in the same positions, in the same specialty, is still a lot. So basically, the route to equality is still needs a lot of work. Those are data. I'm not talking about
it's crazy.
About
it
just a political stand.
For sure. Yeah, that's and you you wrote a book, right? You published a book with Thomson Reuters, like in Spain, called Critical List Lawyering,
Yes.
Manifesto in Times of Crisis. So manifesto, first of all, tell us the definition, Fernando, your definition of, because when you say you're writing a manifesto, like I think somebody's just sitting, like my vision of somebody writing a manifesto would be somebody sitting there like all night and just like writing about like something that's so important to them and like I don't know if I've seen it in the movies, but like, let's hear about the manifesto in times of crisis, critical lawyering. So like what like and like so that connects to like being an advocate for independent lawyering. So I need you to explain all that to me.
Okay, so basically, I mean, the thesis on the book is our profession is in crisis, and we need to face it. I mean, we are talking all that. Yeah, I mean, we are talking all type of bullshit, you know. I mean, we are saying we make a lot of money. We want to present ourselves, you know, like very successful, all of that. It's okay, we are, but there is also a lot of people having real problems to you know, to basically make their life with this profession as independent lawyers primarily. And we are the majority. I mean, independent lawyers are more than 90% all around the world. I mean, like people working in large firms are a minority. However, large firms have how you say, promoted the image and the stereotype of what a lawyer is. Universities have bought into that.
So is that your biggest issue? Yeah. What's your biggest issue with the big firms?
My big issue with the big firms is basically they have monopolized the profession and they are taking it in the wrong direction.
Okay.
They're taking it in the wrong direction in the sense that they are not, how you say, serving the needs of the real people. They're not even serving the needs of the real lawyers, because majority of lawyers, for instance, let me tell you, in Spain, less than 7% of the lawyers work for large firms. However, large firms are the ones monopolizing all the institutional events in the bars. So, I mean, movies, how you say, fiction books, everything is about large firms, you know, the big lawyers.
Right, I mean, right. Well, you know, it's funny you say that because there's this show on TV, right? It's, I'm not going to name the name, but it's a popular show, lawyer show. And like every time they're talking to each other, you know, it might be Harvey Specter, but every time they're talking to each other, it looks like it's 3 a.m, like at a big firm, because it's black outside and like they're in the city and they're yelling at each other. And it's like, come on, man. Like, that's not really, that's not really like what goes. I mean, maybe it is because I've never worked in a big firm. So apologies.
I did.
Like if that's.
I did 4 years, you know, in KPMG and Deloitte, and I know the tyranny of the timesheet and all of that. So basically, this is something, I mean, it's okay, you know, I mean, they need to exist, and they were created after the Second World War.
Deloitte was a big place, though, right? Deloitte was a big place.
It is a big place, and beautiful place to work.
Did they? What's that?
It is a nice place to work.
So if it's that nice,
a lot.
Did they have a snack cart for you? Like if you were there late, did they bring the snack cart by or no?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember that. Right. I mean, probably in auditing they do that, you know, because they work till very late. I mean, we were in a different unit, working with private clients, decent people, you know, no corporate.
I mean, I'd be looking for the snack cart, but okay. So go ahead. So yeah, the big firms are like directing attorneys sort of the wrong way, and they're putting sort of.
Yeah, and there are very good people in America, you know, like Richard Abel. I mean, a university professor who has written a lot about lawyering from this perspective. There is also obviously Duncan Kennedy, I mean, from Harvard, I mean, the critical legal studies guru, I mean, to put it that way. And he has also pointed out this problem. And obviously there are several books written here and there about this specific issue in the States. But this is happening in Europe, it's happening in India, it's happening in China, everywhere. I mean, independent lawyering needs to be how you say, vindicated somehow.
So how do you define independent lawyering?
Independent lawyer is someone who works without pressures, financial, political, or any type of pressure, even partnership pressure. So basically, we work for clients.
But when you say financial, like, what do you mean? Don't you always have like kind of financial pressure?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, talking about independence in that way, you know, I mean, you live in Massachusetts, you know, like the people from, I mean, the thinkers from Concord, you know, in the 18th century living in a forest. I mean, no, I mean, that's not the type of thing.
Yeah, some of these roads here, it is like a forest. I'm telling you, I'm in Central Mass. It's a little forest.
No. So that independence is not possible. What I mean by that is, for instance, I get a case, you know, coming to my firm as an independent barrister, because barristers are independent by nature. So basically, I will not receive pressures, from, for instance, I mean, I got a case from a particular, against a particular monarch, the king of a particular country, majority of firms in London declined that case because all of them have some interest with that particular country.
Okay.
Me as a barrister didn't have an option. I mean, I took it.
Right.
I took it, and it positioned me in a very bad way with that particular country, which is okay. I mean, I am a lawyer. I need to take that case,
right?
Because it is my duty. It is my
That's
profession.
right.
And in England, you cannot say no. I mean, we have a rule as barristers. I mean, when we get instructions for a case, if we can do it according to our specialty and if we have the time, we need to take it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like,
so that's independence. In a big firm, you will be pressurized. I mean, if the client has interest with another partner, I mean, the other partner will call and say, hey, man, I mean, we cannot take that. I mean, there will be conflict of interest, we call it,
right,
but sometimes it's not.
So it's better to be like an independent, and then you don't, you might not encounter that as much, really, right? So
yes, I mean, I think so. I mean, I think that's the nature of the traditional profession, and this is what I believe we should, how you say, advocate for strongly. I mean, like, especially people who are in independent practice.
So how do you reconcile that with having like 5 or 6 offices around the world?
Because everyone working in this structure basically are independent from that point of view. I mean, I don't give orders to equals. I mean, I am one more. I mean, obviously, I am the senior one. I am naming the firm after my Del Canto, but that was just a choice, and people accept it. I mean, it's fine. But there is no like corporate orders. I mean, there is independence politically, like the cases you take or they take. I mean, there is no, we have an ethic. I mean, that's very clear. I mean, ethic framework. So we don't take particular matters, where we are, for instance, anything to do with gender inequalities or violence. I mean, things like that. We don't take cases on those. We don't do criminal law to start with, so we don't need to take it. So, but there are certain things.
Did you practice in the US at all?
I didn't. I mean, as an attorney, I didn't, but I was legal counsel I have been legal counsel for 2 different organizations in New York. Okay. And I have been offering legal advice, especially on international matters. I mean, no state-related matters, but that made me, conversant somehow with especially New York laws in particular areas.
Okay.
But I am familiar with the practice there, and I have met and I have many good friends,
Yeah.
attorneys in especially in New York and California.
Well, you have one now in Massachusetts. I mean,
yes.
All right.
Fantastic.
That's great. So I'm really like curious about the book. Books with Thompson Reuters in Spain. So like, do you have that near you or anything? Is it published?
I have it here.
Can you hold it up?
Yes.
Okay. Is that in Spanish?
It's in Spanish.
It is.
Yeah, but it's Thomson Reuters. Yeah, it was published in 2020.
So how did you get so into the gender inequality thing? How did you get so into gender inequality and being the advocate?
Because I think it was one of the most obvious, inequalities in the profession, especially in Europe. Obviously, race inequality is something that is becoming more evident, and obviously it's a very, very important issue in the profession. And then we have social inequalities, which is something we need to address. I mean, the background of the lawyers coming to practice has changed dramatically, and we are not giving them their space. I mean, this is still a profession for like well-established conservative names in majority of jurisdictions, Yeah. So there is still a lot of work to be done. So gender equality has the particular, or the particularity of affecting equally 50% of the population. So it's transversal because you have race, class or social class, right. I mean, equally divided, between men and women. I mean, so basically the gender inequality is probably the most fruitful type of fight to start talking about inequality in the profession. So
that's great.
Strategically, it's a very good area, to really fight for.
That's terrific. So like so you're in London, like, do you spend a majority of time in London right now? Like
I live in London full time. Basically, 95% of my time. I am traveling very little, especially this year. I haven't traveled at all.
Right, because of COVID, right? Has COVID affected your practice at all?
Not really. Like in terms of, it has affected, obviously, the work coming in, like traditional work coming in, but we have also started to develop other areas of the work, that. So basically, in terms of practice, we have even grown a little bit. Initially when the COVID started, we got very concerned because everything started to slow down, but then more people joined the group, and brought new work. So right now we are well established, and healthy from that point of view.
That's great.
Touching wood.
And how often are you in touch with your other offices around the world?
Basically every other day. We have a weekly meeting where we have 1 hour on Thursday. Basically we meet all together, in Zoom. And then, we are in touch a lot by email, WhatsApp, the typical things. And then I try to get one-to-one calls, every week.
What kind of cases are they all taking? Is it different, like where they are, or is it IT and like?
Yeah, it's, for instance, in Qatar, it's more corporate. Okay. Although we have some family cases, we have some arbitration also there. In Dublin is corporate, majority is corporate work. In Spain is private clients and tax in its majority. And in England, same thing. What I get in England is majority of the work is international tax and IP.
So Fernando, so would you consider yourself a mentor? And what would you say to people who want to be involved in international law? Because it sounds so sexy, like when you're in law school, but then it's really kind of hard to get into, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like international law, I think there is a lot of misconceptions, in terms of international law, or international lawyering, to put it that way. I will start talking about international lawyer once you are able to, be qualified at least in 2 jurisdictions. Ideally 3. If you can do, like 1 civil and 1 common law jurisdiction, I believe is like the minimum requirement. Because if not, you cannot move around properly. But in addition to that, you should get some familiarity, with, for instance, Middle East, Africa, Asia. Working with those countries, so different, like it's not just the legislation itself, it's how legislation is applied, how conflicts are resolved, what are the protocols, what are the social elements in the lawyering profession.
Right. No, that's.
But it requires that, basically anyone who has the interest. Basically the thing is you need to qualify in 2 jurisdictions, understand well the language and the concept of law in 2 jurisdictions, and then it's not a matter of translating. It's not a matter of getting, the civil law and try to understand it from a common law point of view. That doesn't work. Right. You need to be you need to be bilingual, on that respect. From a
so what languages do you speak?
I speak Spanish and English. I understand French, Italian.
Spanish.
I understand a little bit of Hindi and Arabic.
I won the 7th grade Spanish award here in the States. Just so you know, I love Spanish. Sexy language, beautiful. It's terrific. I would like to take a refresher course at some point, but I go up to Maine a lot, and that's like French. So
yes,
sort of like this whole thing where it's like, well, do I want to take the Spanish? And I don't know. So, all right, very, very good. Very good. So tell me, is there anything that we left out today that you really wanted to talk about, Fernando?
No, not really. We have touched on several different topics, so I really appreciate, you taking the time to talk about this matter.
So that's it. Is there any I'm giving you the floor. Is there anything? It's amazing. You're a barrister. You're in London. You have 5 or 6 offices around the world. You've written a book, Gender Inequality. That's a pretty powerful thing. So I would like the opportunity to, promote that on my platform. So hopefully maybe you'll give me the link to the book or whatever, and we can work on that. But I do want to give you, like, how do people get a hold of you?
Oh, basically, I mean, they can go to my firm website, I mean, delcantochambers.com. And also I have a personal blog, where I discuss on some of these matters. Majority of them are in Spanish, unfortunately, because I mean, I do most of my critical or academic work in Spanish.
Okay.
But I am very happy to hear, from people who are, I mean, independent lawyers who are interested in developing an international practice, or they want to look into independent lawyering itself.
Yeah.
As a concept, which I think we need to advocate for. So I always love to hear from people. Obviously, LinkedIn, I am very much involved there. Twitter, Instagram. I mean, Twitter, I have a big. I mean, not big. I mean, it's 5,000 followers, but it's decent size and very good people. A lot of lawyers. I mean, probably 80% of those are lawyers and journalists. I mean, those
let me tell you, like, any way that, like, lawyer stories can help you. Like, if you don't need help. Let me strike that from the record. I
need help.
let me strike that from the record and rephrase that. Any way, like, I can connect you with anybody that you want to be connected with, tell us and we'll connect you. That's a lot.
Definitely, I have seen many interesting stories in your different podcasts, and I will love to connect to some of those people.
Yeah, I mean, so look, hopefully... I pride myself personally on talking to basically talking to 95% of the people who want to submit their story. I DM with them. I email with them. This isn't like, I don't steal pictures from other sites. This is like a legit community. So, like, if there's anybody like that you find, you might have an interesting conversation with, I'm more than happy.
I will do, definitely. I will connect after this with you.
I'm more than happy to help you out with that. But anything else, Mr. Fernando Del Canto?
No, I mean, I'm very happy to see what's going on in the United States. I mean, politically.
Yep.
And watching that carefully. Hopefully January will be okay.
Yeah, it's a crazy time here. It's for sure. It's a very it's a wild time in the US.
Wild time. But good time. I mean, like good moment.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, Fernando, we're gonna sign off. You could stay here. I'm just gonna hit end, but we really appreciate you being here. It's been like an honor to have a few minutes and talk to you about your story. It's an amazing story. Fernando Del Canto, barrister in London, England, law offices around the world. Incredible. Contact him. Great guy. I've just found out in the last hour. Lawyer Stories approved. So everybody out there, wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.
The Lawyer Stories podcast is produced by Marketing the Law. Are you looking at your social presence every day? Potential clients are. Learn how to magnetize your brand with the help of Marketing the Law. Find us on Instagram at Marketing the Law to learn more.